Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. We want to start the next session. So if you are staying for the next session, if you could finally take a seat, and if you are not, please kindly exit the venue because there's some people waiting outside wanting to join this session. So thank you very much. If you could kindly cooperate and either take your conversation to another coffee house, we will start the session shortly. Thank you very much.
You're the moderator, right? Yeah. It's called self-help group.
Yes.
Yesterday was the same too. Okay, all right.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the panel on AI and education and AI as a catalyst for social innovation. A very hot topic this week and around the world as well. Very happy to introduce my panelists, and thank you, Fred, for inviting me to participate. So we have on the extreme left Professor Dr. Omid Aschari, who is Senior Advisor at Prime, which is Principles of Responsible Management Education at UN Global Compact. He is also and has been teaching at the University of St. Gallen since its inception in 2003. And next to him, we have Fred Tsao, who is the fourth generation steward of family business TPC, Tsao Chee. Fred is passionate about building a new business culture that expresses love and care by integrating philanthropy, which is the love of humanity, as a way of doing business. So profit with purpose and love of humanity to positively impact society and life. And to my immediate right, we have Lakshmi, Shruti, Settipalli, athlete, squash player, which is great to know. We used to play, but at different periods, and a global entrepreneur passionate about climate. So AI, I'd like to start off by, and I'm Seok Lim. I am CEO of the Philanthropy Asia Alliance at Temasek Trust. It's an initiative focused on collaborative philanthropy, a global network of alliances and partners coming together to do good in Asia. Very proud and pleased to have Fred as a very supportive member of the alliance. And our focus areas are climate, health, and education, which will be a topic that we're looking at today. So AI, what do we know about it? If you leverage AI and embrace innovation, and it can be a huge game changer. We all know that. But connecting the tech sector to the social sector, how do we do that to uplift lives, livelihoods, to help the underserved get equitable access to it, and it also involves capacity building. Now, how can philanthropy play a role in funding subsidies, building the infrastructure for connectivity, which we need in the first place, and removing the financial barriers for vulnerable populations? We're going to look at all of that today. So let's start off with a question for everyone. How can education and AI create a flourishing society? I should also add that, congratulations, Fred, on your new book, Impact Investing for Life Flourishing. So the first question to everyone is, how can education and AI create a flourishing society while addressing the global challenges that I just mentioned, climate, health, education? So for example, just give a couple of examples of projects. Education, you look at, there's a high-touch, high-tech project that is supported by PAA. That is adaptive technology tailored to the student's proficiency level and learning ability. So personalized learning, that's the high tech part, and the high touch part would be training the teachers so that they can focus on developing higher order skills such as critical thinking, such as socio-emotional skills. So that's one example. Another one to get the community involved, because there is the fear of the unknown when we talk about AI, is an interesting one on climate. So Coral Reef Checks Malaysia is building a live interactive map for coral reef monitoring by citizen scientists. So this is interesting because it fosters community engagement and it focuses on marine conservation, so education in that respect. So with that, let me turn to perhaps Fred. You'd like to kick things off.
Okay. There's many dimensions of this AI tech evolution situation, which everybody know eventually it has a life of its own. So all we need to do is use AI to our purpose. Now consider this, a lot of people is going to lose jobs, and I think everybody knows, because AI is going to be so productive, we only need to work 1 day a week. Wow, that's pretty good, right? There's so many dimensions AI is going to play in changing the world. But one point I'd like to point out is when you work 1 day a week and AI have done your job and your intelligence can never beat AI, and so what do? Well, then we have just to be learning to be human again. Relationships, right? unity, love, connection, learning about ourselves, our inner reality, which we need to have a relationship. So we have plenty of time to change a beautiful world as we change our inner being, as we will find out we are love itself, and it radiates into our projection outside. So you can look at another angle. Wow, there's a very ugly world. Many people are using AI to create, AI wolf warriors, drones that can go into a toilet and shoot you down, I mean, that will happen too, I'm sure. So AI is just an extension of our consciousness, what we want deep inside. But there's one thing we all want, and that is to be well and happy. So if we connect with ourselves, we want this is a truly inner warmth. And by that, we'll find life's great. I really love myself. I love myself. Therefore, I love you because you are me. So education will take a big change. Why? Because education needs to rethink. Because education is a form of shaping humanity, conditioning for the future. But today, education is taken up by the market economy, pushing us into indulgence, capturing our mind so that we are hooked like addiction, that we get a dopamine run, that we becomes more and more greedy to get what we want, a dopamine or whatever, and become more and more ignorant. Well, we want to have personal growth. We want to have higher intelligence. So setting the scene, we need to rethink education holistically, and that's what we're collaborating, because it's the most difficult to change in any government is education and health ministry. What you put in your mind, what you put in your mouth. So we need to create a new model aside with a new thinking, a new university town to show and tell. That's our collaboration with the United Nations. Thank you.
Okay, turning to perhaps Shruti. Tell us how, you like the climate, you have a company. Maybe you can share a bit about what it does, its work, and how you see education inspiring future generations.
Absolutely. Sorry. Hello? I'm perhaps loud enough, so I think it should be fine. Okay, I think it's good. Okay.
Mine's louder.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Good morning. I'm Shruti Settipalli. I run a sustainability firm based out of London. We focus on the R&D of biomaterials. I come from a fifth generation mining family, so I thought it would be redemption to be working in the sustainability realm. In terms of AI, a lot of the work that I've done and the woman that I am today in, Seok, you mentioned that I was also an athlete. It came from the fact that I traveled over 63 countries during the time of my career, and that changed the way I looked at the world, and that changed the way I perceived education. A lot of the things that I learned from being in forums, talking to people and learning new things. And the way I see education going forward is to have equitable access, which is what I believe AI will bring forward. Education is no longer defined to classrooms. By 2030, 65% of the world's population will have access to internet. The social innovation, AI will contribute to over $300 billion. Not too far along right now. So it's very important for us to understand the value of AI on education across the world where equitable access is not found. I was mentioning that we run this small foundation in India, and one of the challenges we initially faced was just rehabilitating the school, but the bigger challenge was how can we provide different interests for people that come from smaller villages. So there were children that were interested in aeronautics, there were children that were interested in neurology. In a small village in India, I can't find professors for all of them, sadly. But through AI and even giving them access to as basic things as ChatGPT, they were able to learn and ask questions and learn from an AI model. So that allowed a more broader learning for the children. And like we mentioned, this allows the teachers now to focus more on relationships and building a better culture for the children. Most of these children come from places that don't have good households, some of them are single parents, some of them are orphans. So it's very important that the teachers have the time to do their character building when you can delegate the job to AI for education.
Thank you. I guess this is a nice point to ask Omid. How do we then embed AI into curricula to drive a focus on sustainability to get towards a flourishing society?
Yeah. Who knows? Can I ask a question to the audience? Who knows Prime? I've heard of PRME. Okay. Principles of Responsible Management Education, sitting at the United Nations. Again, just show me shortly. So far, 4%. Okay, 3%, 3.5% here. So I just say 2 sentences so that you know. So Prime, Principles of Responsible Management Education, is the biggest initiative on sustainability and responsible management education of the United Nations. It's sitting within United Nations Global Compact, which is in itself the biggest platform for sustainable business practices. And the reason why it's sitting there is because management education is driving business. And if you want to change business, we need to change business education. So the transformation of business education is basically the mission of Prime, so that the graduates and the universities, the way they inform society, their graduates, their alumni, and vice versa, strengthen the attainment of the SDGs, which, as you know, have the deadline for 2030. But there is going to be a life beyond 2030, right? And so one has to think very long term and make sure that we can continue. Now to your question. How to embed AI in education is a very smart question, because some people say, how do we need to bend education to serve AI? That's another type of a question. And depending which question you want to focus on, it very much depends on what we assume what the human being is, right? If we say we are sitting here, we are basically, what defines us is our body and the brain cells between our ears and some muscles and skeleton, and basically that's what we are, who we are, then I would suggest to focus on how AI can improve the human being. But if we assume that our body, our material being, is not the fundamental aspect of being a human, then we need to, I suggest to focus on the first question, which is how can AI serve humanity? And then we're having a total different discussion. And for concretely, in terms of education, the question is, though, not, the question is foremost, what is the purpose of education? And if we go back to the founding principles of the United Nations, talking about human dignity and education being a driver for ensuring that human dignity can preserve, and this well-being and the flourishing of human flourishing, as you, Fred, put it, then we need to talk about how can AI bring the best out of what we can offer, of the best of who we are, the best of how we can contribute to fulfilling, to making sure life is, the futurability of life, the viability of life is preserved. And then AI becomes a real beneficial force and not a curse, right? And concretely, the way we embed things, so one of the preconditions of doing so is to understand that education is not about a bunch of courses or a bunch of walls, classrooms where people sitting in there and just listening, giving answers to questions which a teacher who teaches top-down already knows what the answer is, and creating basically parrots who go out into organizations and continue strengthening this top-down approach. We are today living in a world where we need to understand what it means to co-create, and that it's not about positions, it's about responsibilities. How can I, as a learner, take on responsibility even for my own learning? How can I become mature up as a human being as early as possible to understand the frame within which I want to learn something? Asking the right questions becomes more important than giving answers to predefined questions of a system. So it's a total different way, and that means we need to transform education completely. We need to kind of reset it, disrupt it, I would almost say. And AI plays a very important role. And the reason is we cannot solve our world's problems without technology. So we need technology because our world's problems, they have one thing in common for sure: they are all global. They don't stop at the border, right, or outside a town. They are universal. And so the way we need to educate needs to be also follow this principle of universality, making sure that people from different cultures, different ends, different socializations can learn how to collaborate, for example. And AI can play an important role in helping to translate languages, to create platforms where people can much easier collaborate, making sure that people who don't have the means to travel can also connect, and we don't create a disconnected world of those who can afford going to university and those who can go to university. Very important point. So inclusivity, digital inclusion. And then the other aspect which comes also is the idea that when we talk about AI, the more solutions we create on the AI space, like with everything, whenever we create a solution, we also create new problems. And one of the new problems which comes with the AI world is the dimension of creativity, serving others, sort of this aspect of serving humanity, this aspect of how to make sure we can use creativity in the way we come up with new solutions, democratizing the way we learning from each other on the go, and experiential, experience-based learning, which is something which universities have started to get into. And AI can be a big, sort of accompany that process in a very good way, because a teacher can't be everywhere, right? If people have individual learning journeys, we need to find the connector who sort of amplifies the learning aspect, and that's where AI comes in.
Thank you. So expanding beyond classroom learning to experiential learning and beyond. So we've talked about inclusivity, you've talked about equitable access, but what about the ethical use? So companies like Meta have just announced that they are relaxing their restrictions on content moderation, on fact checking. How do we, how can, and I'm going to ask each panelist in turn, but starting again, with you, Omid, just to finish off, the ethical use of it for young children, for women, to protect them, vulnerable populations.
Yes, absolutely. What we do need is two things. On the one hand, we need this topic of governance. So how do we have a code of ethics where we can agree on universal standards? So this universal aspect comes in. But the second aspect is equally important in the sense that we need to localize and make sure that we don't have just top-down approaches of codes or regulations. We have to make sure that we can reach the grassroots level, and that means we need to put more emphasis on how teachers prepare and learn in order to go and teach. First of all, what it means to be a teacher, right? And secondly, then to this topic of ethics, to have it not just Because, the way teachers learn today is a little bit the way students learn where teachers teach. So if we want to change that, we need to change the way teachers learn. And that's where ethics comes in. So ethics cannot be just one course in a curriculum. This idea of fragmenting learning in little spaces which are isolated from each other, and the integration of it happens outside the curriculum, this doesn't work anymore. We have to turn it around. We need to learn based on living objects, living subjects, real life learning, and the courses are serving the learning process. And therefore ethics must then come in teacher education as well, in a very integrated fashion.
Thank you. Fred, the ethical use, building governance frameworks, how do we do that? And how can philanthropy play a role?
Well, humanity has been killing each other about different ideas about ethics, because different culture, different sector, different thing. But so agreeing on ethics would be a long process, but necessary. Likely, people will start first coming with AI crime. That is a little bit more legal, and so digital crime, I think people can agree on that faster than ethics. Ethics is a slow process. But I think that one of the things that we can do parallel, which is even more important in the long term, is education. Because as I said earlier, let's say, if you say, I don't want to allow this content to be shown, and many countries does that, and there's a way to get around it. And then if it's really shut all down, they will have a vibrant black market. So that's not easy to do, but it's a lot easier to go to the origin. What do people desire? That depends on where the orientation is. So education is still the same. But education is not going to be education, like you said, it's a class. In my mind, education is communal. That's how animal learns. That's how we learn. Teacher lives on site. And maybe he's teaching there, teaching that, but they're not. They're a facilitator. And meantime, if you think about what AI can do, we all project to do. So even for us, our coaching modality is now adding an AI coach, which soon to be a robot with human-looking face. Why? Because it's a mirror. It doesn't project. So there are a lot of use of this thing so that we can look at ourselves. When we look at ourselves and wake up, our desire will be different. We desire to be well. We become mindful of what happens to our body, our mind that disturb us. We want peace. And when AI write, it's a circular. I was just coming from a discussion on circular economy. But actually, everything is a circular. That's energy. Everything is circular. So we have to understand everything performs in reality in circular. When you see it, now you can design it. So I see education communal. Parents are educating classes of other children as theirs, and yet parents of others are educating group of children, maybe the owner in there, as theirs, in this whole realization of well-being and happiness. People live together to build this community to host the education system. There should be no faculty that live off-site. Everything should be there as a way of life. Because education becomes our culture, become a way of life. But we should design everything from back up. Earlier talking about what do we want to achieve in, because we got lost into the process. So we should design, like the circular economy, from and up. And we discussed many sectors. Here's we designing education from and back. And there's a lot, because we're not just talking about education. Education covers the whole climate issue, the whole equality issue. It's holistic. Now you have a learning community, because we're not moving We're losing learning. And learning is very individual, but it always has to be contextualized into the collective dynamics. So there will be, unfortunately, no teacher, and yet everybody is a teacher, nurturing the learning process of every person to find their own dignity, own development and growth potential for flourishing together.
Thank you. Maybe just one more question for you, Fred. This community-centered approach, a learning community, as you put it, how can we use education and AI to infuse sort of the sustainability, the importance of climate? You mentioned that as well. You know, in a bigger setting beyond just teaching them, you know, talking down to the kids.
Doing is knowing, show and tell. That's how we really learn, right? So keep doing. You will know, you'll learn. When you do, you know, you have learned. You have no doubt. Otherwise, it's an idea you try to grasp, and you can create illusion, differences, and fighting over a stupid idea and not being practical. Think about it. Most married, girlfriend, boyfriend, spouse, always over some idea that is not practical and spoil the day. How stupid humans are. But when a robot say, hi, they can interfere. You have no more therapists. You have a robot assistant because we have projections. So the idea is very dangerous, but it's also very powerful. But we all have to share a common vision. And then earlier I mentioned, it's a great vision, don't you think? Huh? 1 day a week, you know, spend time. You have no more conflict spending time with your dog, your family. You'll really emerge into find out who you are and how you relate and live your life.
Thank you. And Shruti, you mentioned your family foundation and the school in the rural communities where the teachers may not have been trained adequately with to guide the kids on AI. So again, back to the ethical use. You know, when you search things up on the internet, that could be fake news. How do you protect the kids?
I think with any large technological advancement we've had in the last 30 years, initially there's always a fear about any advancement. Same with artificial intelligence. 10 years ago, we were wondering what camera phones can do to our lives, right? So I don't think the conversation right now is much about ethical use of AI. Like any other search across the world or on Google, I'm sure you can find websites that are blocked and that some that are not based on country and governments. So I don't think AI so far has to be worried about how far people are using it ethically or not. I think it's more of a tool, just a rather advanced tool for us to use things and progress forward as nations and as countries. For me, I come from a different perspective because I've seen the balance and the use of AI really helping communities across the world, right? We're talking about education, and we were speaking about equitable access. AI has been able to do that, across the world without us moving a finger and without us traveling across. So we're able to share this knowledge so equitably, and people are able to really look at spaces that they want to learn from and evolve and grow. So it gives them that time and that platform to be able to do that. I don't think any tool that we build as humans always has both is a bane and a curse. So I don't think that it's something that we should be looking at so critically. I think it's something that we must be open to. We were talking about AI in the medical field, about how we can test blood much ahead of time to avoid cancers in certain places. So I think people really need to understand what AI can truly do for our community. I mean, we've built it. As humans, we're going to find a way to control it, and I'm sure governments will get involved. Executive orders have been signed to ban some apps across the world. So I don't think that governments will take it so easily about running things and have robots running us, even if that's Elon Musk. So I think we will learn how to control the robots if we've created them, and that will be up to each and every government and each and every country as to how ethically they use these AI models. But also, having said that, it comes back, like Fred said, to education. How can we better educate every person across the world to use AI for the betterment of social innovation? So I would say to all of you and everyone across the world, share the message of using AI and using it for creating new innovations across the world to support our communities. So let's create that culture amongst ourselves to be a better human and a better planet and a better world using AI.
Let's turn now to look at challenges in the educational landscape. So some statistics. Looking at Asia, over 50% of children in Southeast Asia experience learning poverty. 12.5 million primary level, 16.5 million lower secondary level children are out of school. We have outdated curricula, insufficient teacher training, which we've talked about, skill gaps that hinder growth, and of course, COVID, as we know, exacerbated all of the above issues, and that's left a lasting impact. So how do we then, what sort of bold systemic changes do we need globally to eradicate learning poverty and skill gaps? And then the flip side of that is all of this whilst ensuring a flourishing society. Omid.
Yeah, I can give it a short answer and a long answer if you want. Which one do you want to hear first? The short one? The executive summary of it. I don't think, or I think that we will be able to overcome these challenges only if we manage to reach the condition of unity in the world. No one invests into regions or places where there is war. We do need to cultivate a common understanding of what it means to be united. So far, in the world, unity was misunderstood as uniformity. But uniformity is not unity. Uniformity means everyone thinks the same. Standardization, because it increases efficiencies, it's easier, things start flowing faster. Much more difficult is to keep up diversity and plus having a united vision about future, but not through the dangerous path of standardizing only. We need the diversity, human diversity in the world, and the diversity which we have actually is the reason why we need unity. Otherwise, we don't need unity, right? We have a few people tell us what to do and everyone follows that. But real unity means that we learn how to collaborate, collective decisioning, learn to what real democratic principles mean. We also need to think about how we need to develop these systems. And that's sort of, I stop with the short answer, otherwise it's not a short answer anymore. We need this condition of unity if we want to solve that. A few aspects which are more concrete. One of them is what we need and need to focus on is to get active ourselves. Many people the last 3 days came up to me and said, Omid, the United Nations, we need to do more. You need to put more effort. Things need to happen. And my answer is, now we live in a time where every person on this earth needs to feel they are collaborating as part of a United Nations. So United Nations is not just an organization, it's an idea, which the more this idea resonates into different regions of the world and people feel co-responsible for these goals, the easier we will make it happen. We need to keep in mind that if we think about, for example, topic AI in education, that we have 1.2, 1.3 billion people in the world, which I would regard as the young generations. This is going to grow significantly in the next decades. At the same time, we have the 8 to 15 sort of top tech companies in the world who will be able to double or triple theirs in size without hiring almost a single person. Now, guess what is going to happen to our young generations, which are being educated right now, right? So they're being educated. I once said we have to be careful not to educate for people to end up in a museum. We need to really start thinking beyond, as Fred earlier said, to think about what do we want to have, what kind of future do we want to live in, what can we agree on, and then go backwards and say, how do we need to educate our young and young-minded generations? With young-minded, I mean us, and the young people are anyhow young-minded. So that is something which needs to be the focus, this co-ownership, and the aspect that the challenges are such that if we need to think like playing chess, several steps ahead, and think about, okay, if AI comes with these kind of innovations, what kind of new problems does it create? How can I, as a person who is interested in providing solutions, anticipate that upcoming emerging problem, which no one yet sees, and offer a solution for others to then work on? Tying in these different efforts is the only way to overcome those challenges.
So you talked about the loss of jobs, job displacement, but on the flip side, being an optimist, maybe then you can look at new types of jobs, as you were talking about, and so that education is a different form of education to arm them, right, with the necessary skills, reskilling, upskilling, and the positive part of that is that you move them up the productivity and income chain.
Yes, and just to add one point, because that's important, just as an example of such a, I shouldn't say skill, it's more ability which one needs to grow into. For example, the ability to perceive patterns has nothing much content to it. You can use it in different spheres, in different disciplines, but we need to learn, all of us need to learn it, but our young people even the more, how do we discern patterns, because everything is becoming more complex and dynamical. And then we need to learn how to utilize a pattern to come up to solutions, to results. And at some point we need to learn how do we create patterns together, right? When I patterns, I mean they can be behavioral patterns, can be cognitive patterns, can be patterns we see in a market or in a space which is developing. So how do you perceive patterns? It's not by just being given a box with knowledge in it, which is predefined, and saying, learn that, and then you can run into your our new complexities. That's not the way the world is going to work for. So we need to think in those terms.
So Fred, in order to embrace tech, to connect the tech sector with the social sector so that we can advance AI for good, collaboration we know is necessary, right? Collaboration between governments, business, philanthropy, and the nonprofits. And I hear that you've got a new collaboration in place with UNGC. We'd love to learn more about it. Would you want to share more?
Yes, but I want to highlight a couple of points that came into my mind.
Okay.
First is that we have to change our language. I was listening. It's not skills, it's ability. It's not a risk, not a problem, but an opportunity. Because our mind works very funny. It actually reiterates a self-fulfilling prophecy. This morning, I was in another panel, and they were talking about procurement, supply chain, how do we effect everything, and everybody's saying, what this do, and then this the sentence becomes echoing. It's not a walk in the park. Yeah, one person say, two person. Then I found next to me all four panelists say, it's not a walk in the park. There's an echo and resonance. It's not a walk in the park. And I said, wow, man, that's a self-defeating. You lose energy. It's like, too tired. I thought to myself later, I said to Omid, Omid, I think of it as running in the jungle. So exciting. The jaguar may show up and you're still running. The python will show up. Wow, and you're still running. It's dark. You have to skip. You have to jump. You're alert. You are alive. You don't know the future. The future is a jungle. We're in the middle of a shitty jungle. And we need to run. Because we don't run, we're going to die. So, hi, jaguar. I'm still running. I'm still running. I'm still running. You change that attitude, you find your life is a lot more joyous and less tiring. Now, back to our collaboration. What was the question about collaboration? Project. So what we want to do is first, in United Nations, we have to unite the United Nations, which I talked to the Deputy Assistant Secretary General. Hey, United Nations has all the good idea. I've read it, but it's so many departments. You got to unite the United Nations to one page of paper about education. I hope she agrees because it's a little beyond him. Anyway, then we got to get the whole world to start working on it. We are going to have 5 retreats from Asia to Europe to Africa to North America to South America. And we're going to get the best thought leadership because education is everybody. It's a parents, it's a business, it's media, it's even the kid himself. Everybody, and everybody is learning from cradle to grave. It is a new thinking. This is what's written in the United Nations Declaration meeting of the Education for the Future. I read it. It's totally cool. But I observe it. Nobody does it because they probably think, oh, how do I do that? Because we can't change the education system. Now, how do you have a systemic drag? How do you change? We got to go out and build something good, right? Show and tell. Outside of the United Nations, but collaboration, like in this case with business. Now, I come from a family business. You know, top on the family business philanthropy, education, and healthcare. But there's no, what do we do? How do we do it? How do we do it collectively? We need a theory of change. We need a systemic approach. And we need to just do it. And the book that I just wrote called Impact Investing for Life Flourishing or Flourishing Life covers that. It is like a manual of, hey, we can agree on this, we can collaborate. So we're going to create in 6 years, we hope. We can do it if there's no bureaucracy. It can be done very quickly, but unity work takes time, and there are many institutes that we want. United Nations is big, but university is a 600-pound gorilla. They have 800 to wrestle. It's a very difficult. So, okay, we'll take time. We'll take it out, we build it, then we plug it in again. That's a strategy. And then we'll build a physical one. Of course, I'm in Asia. I was going to start in Asia. I like Singapore, but they have no land. So how about Singapore, Malaysia collaboration? Build across. We ride across. The next subway is opening up soon. And it's they sibling get together. If you follow news, they're getting back together and putting out difference because Singapore was Federation of Malaya before 1965. So how about different identity or married, come back and have family dinner for our own benefit. This is happening, so I hope that our project will be there, and then we collaborate with the more enlightened 800 gorillas you have in your bag and see who are the thought leaders and who likes running in the jungle. Thank you.
Very exciting, exciting days. Look forward to hearing more. So Shruti, on the topic of collaboration, Can you share with us an example of how you had to collaborate? I'm assuming you had to set up the foundation, and then trying to educate the kids. How do you work with the local communities? How do you reach out to them to ensure that it's run smoothly? And then any plans for expansion? Do you want to share?
Sure. I think it is an age of collaboration. A lot of things coming from a large family business and multiple generations ourselves. I see a lot of differences in the thought process of the way things are done in my generation versus my grandparents and my parents. The one thing that I do admire about the youth today is there's a lot more openness. There's a lot more collaboration. You'll probably see the word pasted on a lot of resumes everywhere. We're a collaborator. We love to collaborate. We love to learn, and we love to grow together. I think it's because also coming back to AI, we're moving at a very fast pace with a lot of technological advancements, and it's hard to stay on top of things when you're doing it all alone. Being that running a foundation, being that running a company, being an athlete, and you have all these different hats we have to wear today. So I think AI has definitely eased the job for us in that regard, which is why I have so much respect for it in terms of social innovation. But coming back to having time and having space to be able to reconnect with nature was a big aspect for me to start and go back into the sustainability realm and to connect. In terms of the foundation, the most critical aspect, of course, besides the funding and the management of running a foundation, the most important and critical part is setting the base of the foundation right, which is the human aspect and the human connect between people. Like Fred mentioned, if AI, we can delegate a lot of the work to AI, then there will be more social innovation and more collaboration. I can give you an example of the girls in the foundation. So I set up the foundation during the time of the pandemic. Shortly after, went back to London to run my company. I came back. We used to provide all the resources required for this school, but what I didn't realize that menstrual hygiene was one of the biggest problems in that village. So we all live in different parts of the world. We're not privy to what challenges each person faces in their part of the world. So what challenge may be faced in Davos may not necessarily be faced in India, may not necessarily be faced in London. So the importance of collaboration comes, and AI comes, that the girls were able to research how to create their own menstrual hygiene pads using cotton and paper. Were able to do that with the support of a small engineer in town, and were able to create their own not so functional, but somewhat menstrual pads that they could use to support the other girls in their village who were not coming to school. So this is where I see, kind of the collaboration between AI and social innovation. It's important that we're able to use, again, all these tools to kind of learn and grow together, and also to empower other people around us to also collaborate and learn. So I think that's a very empowering example for a lot of us here to take back home.
Thanks for sharing that. I think we have time for a couple of questions. Marianne.
Yes, I have two questions. One is that the other day I was at this event by Stanford, of a new Center on Humanity and AI. So what is our role of citizens and entrepreneurs and investors in influencing what kind of AI is developed in the first place that takes on board humanity, not just develop any kind of AI, all different people use, my first question. My second question is that I'm glad to hear that education is not formal education for children. People are growing very old very quickly, and continuous learning is very important for people to stay relevant and continue to thrive as human beings into the 80s and 90s. And I don't hear anything about learning. And particularly for AI and technology can be a great tool, a great divide for older generations. So I want to ask the panel what you think about that.
Who wants to take that?
Omid? Take just the first one to start with. Extremely important point, humanity and AI, and how do we bring it together? Are we just talking about, as you said, producing AI, and the more we progress, the better, because we just, going through it and ending up somewhere at the cliff, and then jumping off and say we made it, but where? And so it's not real strategic thinking. I think there are two aspects to that. One is, again, who is following whom? Following doesn't mean we are limiting ourselves in our imagination. Following means who is responsible, and to to which reality are we developing something? Are we developing something to improve the well-being of the human reality, or are we creating an artificial reality, or basically a new human being in form of an artificially run robot, right? Like some people I've had some discussions on that with some deep forward thinkers, and I always say, let's forward think, but not in a way that we get rid of talking about assumptions. Forward thinking means we need to know on which assumptions are we thinking forward. Is it who is the human being? What does well-being mean? What does humanity need? And who serves whom? And the second aspect which I want to make is we live in a world which is very much focusing on indicators. It's an indicator-driven world. When we talk about education, we're talking about drivers. A driver is something which drives at the end, somewhere in the future, a result, which you can then measure and say that's an indicator. So it's much more invisible, much more difficult to measure it. So we need to focus on that. And ethics, and I call it the noble human qualities, which are, when we talk about ethics, we're talking about things which we think are important for us to be able to have a living together as humanity, is for sure a driver, and has also an aspect in terms of the vision which we want to have. So we, on both ends, ethic plays a very key role we need to focus on. That's some two thoughts which come to my mind.
We've technically run out of time. So I was wondering whether anyone of the panelists wants to add on.
Yeah, I want to
quickly.
share something. First of all, like Plato Republic, there's an ideal, and that ideal is nature. We are nature. We're just out of context with nature. Nature is the operating system, ideal operating system. We design everything against nature. In TPC, we have to have structure of people and organization spinning together, yin and yang. First, structural, about education, executive education, serve well-being of life while creating wealth at the same time, make us purposeful. Then we have a whole structural journey of development, 2.5 years, called quantum leadership, a different kind of leadership that everybody can join into the program. And the third thing is back to the unity. We must understand we're united naturally because we want well-being and happiness. This is an organization aligned to our needs. Our program not offered to our staff but the family because it's systemic. And then we go out there and do and run in the jungle together and having fun. That's what we do in practically executing what we believe in. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. So I think that brings us to the end of this session. Could you join me in putting your hands together for the panelists?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Now I'm running in Davos. Not jungle.
Running in the jungle.